Standard questions asking about drug distribution, asking to see testimony of Cassie as well as David Phillips, one of the escorts in various parts of this case and parts that the government told the jurors to focus on. And now we have this note saying there's a partial verdict saying that they have an unpersuadable opinion between them when it comes to that first count of racketeering conspiracy, but they have a verdict as it applies to the other 4 counts. Just as a reminder, that is 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, where Sean Combs faces 15 years to life for each one of those, and then transportation to engage in. And there's an either or for those 2 charges where you could be talking about transporting either Jane or Cassie or any of the 25-plus male escorts that were allegedly brought across state lines. Each one of those counts carry up to 10 years in prison. Well, and Brian, I mean, as a criminal defense attorney, this is day 2 of deliberations, and you get a verdict. We certainly expected one before the July 4th holiday, but I'm curious, you know, if you were Diddy's defense team right now, how are you feeling? I'm a little happy. I mean, beating the top count is great, but the issue here is that with the sex trafficking charges, they have just as much of a penalty as it does in that RICO conspiracy, the potential of life in prison. I'm a little worried. I think especially of that Cassie charge. If he goes down on the charge against Cassie, that is a lot of time for a 54-year-old to be spending in prison, a minimum of 15 years, potentially of life. But I think you're also optimistic and hopeful that the verdict doesn't necessarily mean conviction. Verdict simply means they've come to a decision. Well, the RICO conspiracy right now, they're trying to figure out, do we simply stop them and kind of cut our losses and just keep that as a mistrial or a hung jury so that count, or do we get what's called an Allen charge where the judge instruct them to continue deliberating, or looking at the time it's 4:47 to say, judge, you know what, maybe let them sleep on it, maybe let them come back, maybe they'll change their mind about some of the verdicts in a positive way for either side, defense or the government. But at that point, you're really just rolling the dice and just hoping for the best in that case. Brian, in your expertise, I mean, would we actually hear what the partial verdict is before that RICO charge is essentially determined? Yeah. So there is a possibility that you would hear a polling of the jury where either scientific, the prosecutor, or the government will ask to poll the jury to say, is this your true and final verdict, or some language along that sense? And they'll do it for all of the count. They'll do it to make sure that if Sean Combs is convicted of any of the charges, that all 12 of them agree to that, or if he's found not guilty of a charge, that all 12 of them have that as well. And it's likely that they will also do that for that RICO conspiracy, and you'll hear something along the lines of 10-2 to convict, or 6-6, or whatever the number may be. But I think that one side or the other will likely poll the jury to see what the numbers. And obviously this is something that is developing right now. We just got a new note from our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky, who's there inside that court. He said the judge will not take a partial verdict. He says that once the lawyers work out the language, the judge will call the jurors into the courtroom and instruct them to keep deliberating. Both sides asked the judge to do this. The judge agreed. No verdict is being read as of now, and again, this is going to continue to develop, so bear with us here.
Imagine people in hip-hop would ever be able to get, and a lot of that happened because of Sean Combs and his influence. So, I mean, to, dismiss the fact that he is a cultural icon and a beacon for this community and has done so much for this community isn't, but you now have to look at it, right next to kind of what we all have experienced in covering this summer with regard to this trial.
All right, Kelly, Arena, and Bernard, much thanks to you all. We're going to take a quick break and much more coverage on the other side. I'd never seen that many skeletal remains of thousands, so is this killer. He's the drummer you've never heard of. There were mannequins, almost like it was a club. I felt the presence of people. Never before a face-to-face interview with the camera. Why now? Let me ask, am I the evil culprit? The accomplice? I'd like to know how the audience views me at the box. Although Murderer's Playground of a Serial Killer only on Hulu, at any point you can encounter evil. Young woman riding her bike and she gets abducted. Where is she? It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. You get the phone call. She's been found, one of the worst pains you can ever have. I kind of had to stop my jaw from falling. What kind of person would do this to the same evil person? She was almost home. The 2020 true crime event Friday night at 9 Central on ABC. Yummy Thursday night, Press Your Luck returns. We got this guy with big bucks next door, big wins. and that dream trip for her and big weddings. Hope you're not invited, press your luck. New episodes return July 10th, Buddy DC and stream on Hulu. We're back, baby. Yes, and I'm so excited to be here. We actually watch you every night. You're in our bed every night. The food gets wild. Ramadi smells really good. We're ready to roll too. And famously funny name, something your major has in common with the basketball bounces. Celebrity Family Feud season, premiere Thursday, July 10th on ABC. All right, we have more breaking news coverage here on ABC News Live reports. A jury reaching a partial verdict in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Diddy Combs. A note sent to the judge saying that the jury is unable to reach a verdict on the racketeering conspiracy count, adding that there are, quote, unpersuadable opinions, both the prosecution and defense attorneys agreeing with the judge. The judge's plans to instruct the jury to continue deliberations, and the next steps are apparently being debated right now. We just actually got an update. The judge brought the jury back into the courtroom to tell them to continue deliberating. He also said they can decide if they want to do that this evening or return to resume tomorrow in the morning. And for more on this, I want to bring in ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer, who has been following this along with us. And Brian, you brought up something called an Allen charge, which, and I'm going to attempt to put my legal hat on here, but that is essentially a jury rendering a partial verdict here that the judge could potentially accept. Well, Alex, I gotta say you didn't pass the bar, but you know a little bit, and you do know a lot. An Allen charge comes from the Supreme Court case where if a jury has gotten to a point like we have here, where they say they're at an impartial, they feel for whatever reason that there cannot be a meeting of the mind of the 12 people, that they cannot go forward. And initially what would happen is a judge would read either the standard language of an Allen charge, and you can Google it and you can probably find it for the asking while you're any kind of federal court, or they would kind of modify the language, making it shorter or longer, or emphasizing more aspects of it, depending on what the sides agree to. And basically, you're telling the jury is it's your job to keep pushing forward. It's difficult and we understand. You may have different opinions, but lean on each other, talk to each other and try to converse and see if there's other facts or arguments or suggestions where you can all come to consensus, whatever that consensus is. And an Allen charge, you cannot feel like you are moving the needle in one way or the other. It has to be absolutely neutral. It cannot be suggesting that you must convict or that you must acquit, and that's what happened. But this last message to the jury by the judge, I think is going to be more telling than anything else, because right now it's Friday night at 9/8 Central on ABC. What is this high school high? Joe. The vampires and walkers hate each other. We come from a town where all monsters live together. That is not going to happen. Fight for what you believe in. One of our towns won't survive to them or us. Imagine going from hip-hop kingpin to facing the population of life in prison for alleged sex trafficking. Now with the trial underway and there is life hanging in the balance of a New York jury, what will happen next inside that courtroom? Bad rap the case against Diddy, breaking down every new twist, turn, and development inside the courtroom. Listen to breaking news on the Diddy trial wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, in today's spotlight, President Trump touring the remote migrant detention center in the middle of the Florida Everglades, a so-called alligator Alcatraz. Officials say that the facility will eventually hold up to 5,000, and as part of the president's effort to ramp up deportations by expanding detention capacity while on the tour, Trump revealed some new details about who will be held there. Take a listen. It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and it's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon, this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. All right, let's bring back my panel, John, Heidi McCracken, Aaron, and Heidi. I want you to kick things off with us. We're seeing a lot of pushback against construction of this facility, specifically from some of the local tribes that are in that area. But what do you make of all of this? Well, the first thing you saw, a 20% increase in the Department of Homeland Security, and so this has now become Republican policy. But I think that what you're seeing played out in the real world in front of Home Depots and in strawberry fields is that these aren't the worst of the worst people. These are people who have not committed crimes, and I think the public is seeing that it's not the guy who has committed all of these crimes that the president keeps talking about. It is their next door neighbor, is their daughter's son or daughter's husband. And so I think that we keep letting this president say he's only deporting criminals. That's absolutely not true. And when you look at this kind of investment, wouldn't it be great if the investment was made in actually devising an immigration policy that works for our economy, creates fairness in terms of a path forward, and actually does strong border security? This is all a big movie show as far as I'm concerned. And you know, he loves the title Alligator Alcatraz, but that somehow fits the narrative of being a tough guy. But I'm not convinced that it's going to advance any kind of meaningful agenda on immigration or deportation. Well, and hop in here. I mean, do we need an alligator Alcatraz? Well, let me be very clear. Haiti is misleading when she's stating that these people aren't the worst of the worst. These are criminals the minute you come into this country illegally. That is a criminal act. That's your first act in America. I'm a legal immigrant. I came here legally. I take notice to Democrats today that continue to be stopped supporters of illegal immigrants. And yes, we do need a facility for the worst of the worst gang members, traffickers, violent repeat offenders. You're seeing statistics today, 13.5 illegal immigrants that are in our country that then go through any type of security background check. We have violent offenders, we've seen rape, we've seen all of our women and children that have been victims of illegal immigrants. So yes, we have to protect the American people, and this is the fastest way to do it. This signals to illegal immigrants that if you come to our country and you commit crimes by entering, you're going to be detained, you're going to be deported immediately. Heidi, your name check there. David Muir is the #1 newscast in America. All good evening. I'm Alex Prescia in Washington, and we begin with breaking news here on ABC News Live. The jury in the sex trafficking and racketeering trial of Sean Diddy Combs is done for the day after reaching a partial verdict on their second day of deliberations. The jury saying that it reached decisions on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, but were unable to reach a verdict on the racketeering conspiracy count. The judge in the case saying that they will not take a partial verdict and instructed the jurors to keep deliberating. Those deliberations will resume tomorrow at 9 a.m. Combs faces 5 criminal counts in total. He has pleaded not guilty to all of those charges. So for more on this, I want to bring in ABC News' Rena Roy outside that courthouse. Also ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer, ABC News legal contributor and criminal defense attorney Bernarda Villalona, and ABC News contributor and senior entertainment reporter for ESPN's Inscape Kelly Carter. And Rena, I want to start with you. The jury resumes those deliberations tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. This was really a dramatic end to a second day of deliberations. Yeah, Alex, very dramatic. We were on the air together when this note came down in the 12th hour of deliberations. The jury saying that there were unpersuadable opinions in the jury room that they could not come to a decision to a verdict on count 1, this very serious charge of racketeering conspiracy. But the judge, as you pointed out, said he would not accept that and said that they can continue tonight or come back tomorrow. He gave them that decision. As you pointed out, they decided to reconvene at 9 a.m. The judge reread them their instructions, saying, in part, it is your duty as jurors to consult with one another and to deliberate with a view to reaching an agreement. Now, before they went home for the night, he told them to make sure that they keep an open mind as they continue their deliberation. Meanwhile, we're told that Combs was in the court during this. He maintained his composure while the jury was in the room, but just moments before he was emotional when this note came in, when he learned that there was a potential verdict here. He was teary-eyed. He was wiping away his tears. So a lot to keep an eye on here, Alex, as we wait for them to come back tomorrow. Yeah, certainly. Well, and Brian, I'm curious, were you surprised that it's the racketeering conspiracy charge that the jury couldn't agree on? No, I'm not really that surprised. I think and I don't want to speak for everyone, Bernard and I have been in court from day one, so has Chana Lloyd. And so we've kind of talked about this, that there might be some difficulties. I think not necessarily in the predicate acts, but I think in whether or not this is a criminal enterprise to get 12 people to sign on to that, I think is difficult. And to hear that there are unpersuaded opinions that are differing between these people, I'm not shocked by that in any way, shape, or form. What I'm looking at now are the other 4 charges where there are a decision in my mind. It's either guilty of all 4, not guilty of all 4, or maybe 2 and 2. And I say that just because I think they could be leaning towards a guilty as it applies to Kathy Casey as well as the transportation to engage, and as is to her just from what we've seen in the evidence. I think we may come back on Wednesday morning and see them finally say,